Mark Carter lived a quiet life at the edge of Red Pine Town. His small wooden house stood near the forest, far from the noise of the city. People called him the calm man, someone who liked simple work, hot coffee, and peaceful nights with his son, Evan. But on this night, peace was far away. It started with a sound, a soft knock, then another, not strong, not loud, but strange, like a small hand asking for help. Mark stood up from the sofa, leaving his warm cup behind. Evan was already asleep in his room, so Mark walked quietly toward the front door. He felt something, a cold wind or maybe a warning, but he opened the door anyway. A little alien girl stood there. She was small, maybe 7 years old, with gray-blue skin and bright silver eyes that reflected the moonlight. Her hair was thin and glowing slightly, like soft threads of light. She wore a simple brown cloak, but it was torn at the edges. Her hands were shaking. Mark froze for a moment. He had seen aliens before in town, but they always stayed with their own community, far away. None ever came to his house. And definitely not at night, alone, scared. The girl looked up at him with big, shining eyes. "Can you fix our door?" she whispered. She paused, swallowed, then added in a tight, trembling voice, "Mommy scared." Mark felt his heart twist. The fear in her eyes was too real. He bent down slowly, so he didn't scare her more. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lyra," she said, holding her hands close to her chest. "Our door is broken. Mommy said humans know how to fix things. She told me to find someone kind." Her voice cracked. "She said you look kind." Mark rubbed his jaw. He wasn't used to being called kind by strangers, especially alien ones. But the girl looked like she had walked through fear itself to reach him. "And where's your home, Lyra?" he asked. She pointed toward the dark forest. Her fingers shook the whole time. Mark looked at the woods. Thick trees, no lights, nothing visible. Only darkness. "Your house is inside there?" She nodded. "It's hidden for safety." Mark felt a cold worry climb up his spine. Something was wrong, very wrong. Still, he said, "All right, I can take a look. I know a bit about tools." Lyra finally took a breath of relief. The tension in her shoulders dropped a little, like she'd been holding fear for hours. Mark quickly grabbed his flashlight and a small toolbox. Before leaving, he went to Evan's room. His son was sleeping peacefully, hugging his old toy spaceship. Mark whispered, "I'll be back soon, kiddo. Stay inside." Locked the door. He stepped outside, pulled the door shut behind him, and Lyra led the way. The night was colder in the forest. The wind carried a strange whistling sound, and the leaves moved like something was brushing past them. Lyra walked fast but kept looking behind, as if checking for something or someone. Mark tried to talk while they walked. "How far is it?" "Not far," Lyra whispered, but it didn't feel true. Her steps were quick, like she was afraid to slow down. Mark noticed she kept touching her forehead, rubbing a small mark glowing faintly on her skin. It looked like a symbol, maybe natural, maybe something else. "Is your mother hurt?" Mark asked gently. Lyra hesitated. She's scared," she said. "The door was the only thing keeping us safe. It keeps the bad men out." Mark slowed a bit. "Bad men? Humans?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "Mommy said the forest listens. Don't speak too loud." A chill ran through him. Mark wasn't a man who scared easily, but this place felt wrong. Too quiet, too dark, too watched. They walked deeper until Lyra suddenly grabbed his sleeve. "Don't move," she said. Mark froze. A low rumbling sound passed through the trees. Not an animal, not the wind. Something heavier, something breathing. Mark lifted the flashlight, but Lyra pressed his hand down quickly. "No light," she whispered. "They see light." "Who?" Mark asked again. Lyra shook her head. "Mommy will explain. We must hurry." They move again, this time almost running. Finally, a small shape appeared between the trees, a hidden shelter made of metal, old wood, and strange alien glass. It was half buried into the earth. Soft blue lights blinked weakly on its sides. The door of the shelter was glowing faintly, but flickering, as if about to die. Lyra rushed forward. Mommy, I found someone. The door opened with a weak hiss. Inside stood another alien, Lyra's mother. Taller, thinner, with the same glowing eyes but filled with exhaustion and fear. She held a device in her hand that sparked like broken electricity. When she saw Mark, she stepped back nervously. He's safe, Lyra said quickly. He said he can fix it. The mother studied Mark. A long, heavy moment passed. Then she whispered, "Please, help us," before they come back. Mark took a slow breath. "Show me the door." He walked inside, kneeling beside the control panel. The wires were burned. The shield generator was cracked. And the damage wasn't natural. It had been cut. Mark looked up. "This wasn't an accident," he said. "Someone did this on purpose." Lyra's mother nodded, voice shaking. "They found us." Mark didn't know who they were, but he knew one thing. Whatever was coming, it was dangerous, and it was close. The air inside the alien shelter felt different, heavier, almost electric. Mark stepped in carefully. The moment his boots touched the metal floor, the lights above flickered like a warning. Blue sparks ran across the walls, dancing for a second before dying again. Lyra shut the door behind them, and a soft vibration traveled through the entire structure, like the house itself was breathing in fear. Mark noticed it instantly. This place wasn't just a home. It was a machine, old, damaged, and running out of time. The alien mother, Saran, moved slowly, as if every step hurt. She held her side with one hand, and a faint purple glow seeped between her fingers. Alien blood. Mark frowned. "You're hurt." Saran looked away. It happened when the hunters tried to break the door. Hunters. The word hit Mark like a punch. He crouched near the doorframe. Strange symbols were carved around it, glowing softly. Some were cracked. Some were burning faintly, like they had been recently forced open. "This door," Mark muttered. "It's not just for locking. It was protecting something." Saran nodded. "It protected us. Until they found us." Mark looked at her. "Who are they?" Saran's eyes glowed with fear instead of light. "Humans in black suits. From the facility we escaped. They want Lyra." Lyra flinched and stepped closer to Mark, gripping his sleeve. "They took the others," she whispered. "Mommy saved me." Mark's stomach tightened. "You mean a government lab? Scientists?" "No," Saran said. "Something worse. They want to use my daughter's ability. She heals life. She can repair living things. They call her a resource." Lyra lowered her head. "I don't like healing for bad people." Mark felt a rush of anger. Hunters chasing a child like she was equipment? He knew humans could be cruel, but this? He pushed the anger aside. "Focus." He pointed at the broken panel beside the door. "This tech, it's alien, but the damage, the cuts are too clean. Humans use tools for this." Saran stepped closer. "Yes." They shut down the shield for a moment. "I managed to restart it, but only weakly. The door is dying." Mark examined the wires. Most were burnt. Some were ripped clean. But there was something stranger, something that made him stop. A small metallic piece was lodged inside the circuit. It wasn't alien technology. It was human. A tracker. Mark pulled it out carefully with pliers. "This thing is a signal chip. They put this here. They're tracking you." Saran's breath trembled. "So they're coming back." Mark looked at the flickering lights, then at Lyra's frightened face. "Yes," he said quietly. And soon, Lyra moved closer to him until her shoulder touched his arm. "Can you fix it?" she whispered. Mark forced a steady breath. "I don't know alien tech, but I know broken machines. And I can learn." He opened his toolbox. Lyra watched him with wide eyes, hope mixing with fear. Saran stood near the window, staring into the dark forest as if expecting something to emerge. Mark began working, but the deeper he went, the more he realized this door wasn't just a door. It was a barrier, a shield generator, part of a full protective system, and it was collapsing. Suddenly, thump, a loud hit landed on the outer wall. Lyra gasped. Saran spun around. Mark froze. "What was that?" he whispered. Saran's voice grew tight. They're testing the shield. Already? Mark asked. Saran nodded. They move fast. They never stop. Another thump echoed, this time near the back wall. Then a slow, scraping sound traveled across the metal, like claws dragging across steel. Lyra grabbed Mark's arm. They're close, she whispered. I can feel them. Mark tightened his grip on the tools. There's no time to be scared now. We fix this. Together. He rewired 2 broken lines, twisting human metal with alien fiber. The panel sparked and hissed. Is that safe? Lyra asked. Nope, Mark said, but it's all we've got. The lights above flickered brighter for a moment, then steadied. Not perfect, not strong, but alive. Saran looked at him with surprise. You understand our energy flow? Mark wiped sweat from his forehead. I understand things that shouldn't break, and this door shouldn't break. Then something slammed against the door, hard. The whole shelter shook. Lyra stumbled, and Mark caught her. Saran's voice dropped to a whisper. They're here. Mark stood up, eyes narrowing. Then I need to finish this fast. The pounding on the door grew louder, faster, angrier. Mark leaned close to Lyra and said quietly, Hey, I'm not letting anyone take you. Understand? Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. He returned to the broken shield core. Only one connection left, the hardest one. A tiny crystalline piece half shattered from the earlier attack. If it broke fully, the shield would die permanently. Come on, he whispered, hands shaking slightly. Just hold together. Outside, a voice echoed, metallic, amplified, human. Open the door and hand over the child. Lyra trembled violently. Saran moved in front of her protectively. Mark didn't look away from the panel. Click. The final piece locked in. A deep hum spread across the shelter, a living heartbeat of energy returning. The shield flared bright blue across the door. Mark exhaled. It's back, he said. But they won't stop now. Saran swallowed hard. Then prepare yourself, human. They will break everything to get my child. Mark stood, eyes cold. Not while I'm here. The blue shield glowed faintly around the shelter, humming like a tired heartbeat trying to stay alive. But outside, something moved. Mark felt it before he heard it, a pressure in the air, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Lyra stayed close to him, her small hand clutching his sleeve tightly. Saran stood near the dark window, eyes fixed outside, body ready to move even though she was weak. The pounding on the door had stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. Much worse. Mark whispered, Why did they stop? Saran didn't blink. They're not gone. They're thinking. Mark stepped closer to the window, careful not to stand directly in front of it. Outside, everything was still. The forest looked like a painted picture. Frozen leaves, no wind, no movement. Too quiet. Mark's instinct screamed a warning. Then, crack. A branch snapped somewhere near the left side of the shelter. Lyra flinched. They're spreading, she whispered. They always move in a circle. Mark tightened his grip on his flashlight. How many hunters usually come? Saran answered without looking away from the window. Not many. They don't need many. They are trained. They don't feel fear. Mark muttered, Well, I do, and they should too. Another sound echoed. Not walking, not running. This was breathing. Heavy, slow, controlled, like something huge inhaling and exhaling through a mask. Mark stepped back. That's not human breathing. Saran finally turned toward him. It is human. They modify themselves for night missions. Mark cursed under his breath. They're enhanced. Yes, Saran whispered. Enhanced to hunt us. Lyra held onto Mark's arm tighter. Then, a metallic click, click, click echoed across the wall. Mark froze. He knew that sound. A scanner. Someone was scanning the shield from outside. Saran spoke in a low voice. They're mapping our weakness. Mark's eyes sharpened. They're going to find a thin spot. He quickly ran to the control panel, checking the shield current. It was stable, but only barely. The hunters just needed one weak point. One mistake. One opening. A soft vibration shook the floor. "They're close to the back wall," Mark said. Saran nodded. "That side is thinner. The material is old." Mark turned to Lyra. "Stay behind your mother. Don't move unless I tell you." Lyra nodded quickly, trying to be brave, but her eyes were full of fear. Then the lights flickered, not randomly, in a rhythm. 2 flashes. Pause. 1 flash. Pause. 2 flashes. Mark frowned. "That doesn't look like a power problem." Saran swallowed. "It's not." "What is it?" Mark asked. Saran looked at the ceiling. "They're using an EMP pulse to confuse the power core." Mark's face hardened. "They're not breaking in yet. They're weakening the shield first." Before Saran could respond, boom! A sudden impact hit the back wall, shaking the entire shelter. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra fell to her knees. Mark grabbed her quickly and pulled her up. Saran hissed in pain as she held her side. Mark whispered, "What was that?" Saran's voice broke. "A heavy strike. They're testing how much force the wall can take." Mark clenched his teeth. "These aren't hunters. These are demolition-trained soldiers." Then something new happened. A shadow slid across the window. Not walking, not crawling, sliding. Human size, but too smooth. Mark stepped back instantly. "What was that?" Saran answered with fear in her voice. They were light-bending suits. They mixed with darkness. Mark shook his head, trying to stay calm. "Great. Invisible soldiers. Perfect." Another shadow passed. Then another. 3, maybe 4. Mark whispered. They're surrounding the shelter. Lyra tugged on Mark's shirt, voice trembling. "Mr. Mark, they're angry. I can feel their minds. They want to break the shield tonight." Mark knelt in front of her. "Listen to me. They are strong, but that doesn't matter, because I'm not letting them hurt you. Understand?" Lyra nodded with wet eyes. Mark stood up. "Saran, is there any backup system in this shelter? Any emergency shield?" Saran shook her head weakly. "No backup. The door is the only defense. Once it falls, we fall." Mark looked at the broken wires, the flickering lights, the forest outside, and the terrified child. He straightened his back. "Then we don't let it fall." Suddenly, the metallic voice from outside returned, but this time calm. "Cold, we know you are inside. The shield is weak. Surrender the child, and we will not harm the others." Lyra whimpered. Mark walked toward the door. He spoke loudly, voice steady. "You want the girl?" His tone turned sharp. "Then come get her." Lyra gasped. Saran stared at him. Mark continued, louder. "But listen carefully. I'm not backing down. And I'm not opening this door." Outside, silence. Then a chilling laugh. A human voice with zero softness. "Very well. We take her by force." Mark whispered to himself, chest tightening. "Yeah, I figured." Suddenly, CRRK, crash. A metal claw tore across the back wall, peeling a thin line through the outer layer. Sparks flew inside the shelter. Lyra screamed. Saran grabbed her, shielding her with her body. Mark spun toward the sound. A small crack. A glowing line, growing wider. They were cutting through. Mark grabbed the only thing nearby, a metal pipe, and positioned himself between the crack and the family. He knew he couldn't fight enhanced soldiers, but he could buy time. And time meant life. The glowing crack widened. Light poured through, and a black metal hand appeared inside. Mark lifted the pipe, ready to swing. "Come on," he whispered. "Try me." The black metal hand pushed deeper through the glowing crack in the wall. Sparks hissed and danced across the floor as the cutting line widened. The shelter trembled like it was shivering from fear. Mark did not move. He stood between the family and the breach, gripping the metal pipe with both hands. His heart was racing, but his eyes were calm, sharp, focused. If they came through, he would hit, not to win, but to slow them down. Lyra hid behind Saran, squeezing her mother's arm so tightly her fingers trembled. Saran held her close with one hand and pressed the other over her injured side. Her skin glowed faintly as she tried to control the bleeding. The metal hand paused mid-cut. A voice, low and cold, spoke from behind the wall. "Step aside, human. You are not part of this." Mark snorted. "Yeah? Well, now I am." Silence. Then the cutting continued, faster, angrier. The glowing line grew longer. Saran grabbed Mark's arm suddenly. Her eyes were wide, almost desperate. "You can't fight them," she whispered. "You will die." Mark didn't look at her. "I'm not planning to win. I'm planning to buy time." "Why?" Saran hissed. "Why risk yourself for us?" "For her." Mark finally looked at her. "Because she's a kid," he said simply. "And kids deserve safety." That's it. Saran stared at him like she didn't know whether to trust him or fear for him. But something changed in her eyes, a deep hidden pain. "Mark," she whispered, "there is something I must tell you. Something Lyra cannot know yet." He didn't answer. The cutting sound grew louder, sparks brighter. But Saran stepped in front of him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "Listen to me. If the hunters get inside, they will not just take her." Her voice dropped. "They will destroy everything, including you." Mark tightened his grip. "They can try." Saran exhaled shakily. "You do not understand why they want her. Humans didn't just study us. They didn't just chase us." She swallowed hard. "They broke us apart." Mark frowned. "What do you mean?" The cutting line suddenly stopped again. The forest outside fell silent. Even the hunters seemed to be listening. Saran closed her eyes, as if pulling a memory that hurt more than her wounds. "Lyra is not the only child they took." Lyra gasped. "Mommy?" Saran held her close, but didn't look down. "They took Lyra's twin brother." Mark felt the air in his chest freeze. "A twin," he said quietly. "Yes," Saran whispered. "He was born minutes before Lyra. Stronger. His healing ability was powerful even at birth. Humans saw it. They took him from my arms. They said they needed him. They called him Project Dawn." Lyra's knees buckled. "I had a brother?" Saran turned quickly, cupping her daughter's face. "I didn't want you to know yet," she whispered. "I thought if we had long enough, we could save him." Mark felt anger burn through him. "So they're not just hunting you. They're using your son." Saran nodded slowly. "The hunters are not here only to capture Lyra. They are here because—" Boom! The wall shook violently. Dust rained down. The metal cut expanded another inch. Saran continued quickly. "They are bringing your brother here to make Lyra react." Her voice shook. "They know her emotions boost her healing. They want her to repair the damage they caused to him." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Mommy, we have to save him. We can't leave him there alone." Mark knelt beside her, his voice steady. "Lyra, listen. If they took him, they won't let him near you. Not without control. This is a trap." Saran nodded. "Yes. They want her to rush outside. To surrender. They want her emotional panic." Mark cursed under his breath. So the whole attack could be a distraction. Saran looked at him with pain in her eyes. "They know a parent will do anything for their child. They are using my love against me. And now yours." Mark's grip on the pipe tightened. Behind the wall, the cutting suddenly stopped. Everyone froze. A different voice spoke, one Mark hadn't heard before. Calm, cold, commanding. "Saran, bring the girl. Now, or we will show you what we did to the boy." Lyra screamed. "And oh." Saran covered her mouth, eyes filled with terror. Mark felt a rage he had never felt in his life. He stepped closer to the wall, shouting, "You touch that boy again and I swear." But he didn't finish. Thud. Something heavy hit the ground outside. Soft, weak, like a body falling. Lyra's breath caught. "Brother?" Saran trembled. No, they wouldn't. A faint sound leaked through the crack. A whimper. A child's voice. Weak. Hurting. "Mom?" Lyra screamed and rushed forward, but Mark caught her before she reached the crack. "Stop," he shouted. "It's a trick." Her tears fell fast. "That's his voice. I heard it." Mark's voice hardened. They're copying him, or they're forcing him to speak. Either way, if you go out, they will take you. Saran collapsed to her knees, covering her face with shaking hands. Outside, the hunter spoke again. Bring the girl. Last warning. Mark stood between Crack and the family, pipe ready, anger burning. He whispered one promise. They're not getting her, and they're not getting you. Suddenly, whir, slam, the hunters activated something heavy. The Crack lit up with red light, a cutting torch. They were done playing games. They were coming in. Red light poured through a crack in the wall like a blade made of fire. The hunters had activated a full cutting torch, its sharp beam hissing against the metal. The air inside the shelter grew hot, vibrating with a dangerous hum. Every second, the crack widened. Mark didn't wait. He grabbed the toolbox, dragged it near the damaged power core, and dropped to his knees. We don't have time, he muttered. If this shield fails, they walk straight in. Lyra crouched beside him, shaking but determined. Mr. Mark, please fix it. Please. Mark forced a smile, small, tired, but real. I'm going to try, but I need you to stay behind me, okay? She nodded, wiping her tears. Behind them, Saran pressed her back against the weakening wall, her hands glowing faintly as she tried to use her remaining energy to slow the crack. The metal screamed under the torch's cut. Mommy! Lyra cried. Saran didn't look back. Stay with Mark. He is your shield now. Those words hit Mark harder than the pounding outside. He turned back to the power core. This wasn't like any human machine. Dozens of thin crystal lines, glowing cables, soft organic layers, and a pulse inside like a heart. He spoke to himself under his breath. Okay, door shield runs to main crystal. Current is unstable, secondary coil is burned. If I cross these wires wrong, the whole thing could explode. Lyra whispered. Please don't explode. Yeah, I was planning to avoid that. Outside, a hunter kicked the wall. The whole shelter jumped. Dust rained over Mark's shoulders. Then a voice came through the crack. So close it felt like someone was whispering directly into the room. We are inside in 90 seconds. Prepare the child. Saran's eyes widened. Lyra sobbed harder. Mark didn't look up. He worked faster. Sparks hit his fingers as he twisted two wires together. Come on, hold for me. The shield flickered brightly, then dimmed again. Not enough. Mark cursed under his breath. They cut through the stabilizer. I can't reroute power without another conductor. Saran gasped. You mean something that can carry energy? Yes. A metal rod, a cable, anything. Saran pointed at the ceiling beams. The support bars are made of mixed alloy. They might carry energy. Mark stood up, grabbed Lyra's old wooden chair, and smashed it against the beam. Which shattered. The metal beam shook, but didn't break. Another hit. Another. Finally, the beam cracked, dropping a long, thin metal rod. Mark grabbed it. Perfect. He ran back to the core, shoved one end into the power port, and held the other close to the broken stabilizer. Lyra, hold this here. Her eyes widened. Me! Don't touch the shiny part. Just the handle. Hold it steady. She nodded and grabbed it with trembling hands. The power core hummed. Light crawled through the metal rod like liquid lightning. Good. Keep holding it. CRR, crayosh! The back wall split another 6 inches. A hunter's mask appeared through the gap, glowing blue eyes behind black armor. Lyra screamed. Saran stepped in front of her and released a blast of weak energy from her hand. It sparked uselessly against the hunter's helmet. The hunter reached through the crack, metal fingers stretching toward Lyra. Mark didn't think. He grabbed the metal pipe from earlier and swung with every ounce of strength he had. Clang! The hunter's hand jerked back. Mark growled, "Back off." Another voice outside spoke calmly. 30 seconds. Mark turned back toward the core. The energy flow still wasn't stable. He ripped open the lower panel, checked wires, and froze. The final connector crystal, the heart of the shield, was cracked in half. "Oh no," he whispered. Without that crystal, the shield could not reach full strength. It would fail in minutes. Saran looked at his face. "What is wrong?" Mark held the broken crystal. This piece, it's too damaged. It won't hold power. Saran closed her eyes. I can repair it. Mark snapped his gaze toward her. You're bleeding. You're weak. You'll die if you try something like that. Saran didn't blink. I am a mother. That is reason enough. Lyra cried, No, Mommy, don't. But Saran already stepped forward. She placed her trembling hand over the crystal. Her skin glowed brighter than before, brighter than was safe. Mark shouted, Stop! Your body can't. Saran whispered, Let me protect her one more time. Her energy flowed into the crystal. The crack began to close slowly, painfully. Her knees shook. Her breathing grew shallow. Lyra screamed, Mommy, please stop. It hurts you. Saran smiled weakly. Love always hurts, but it saves too. The crystal finally fused completely. Saran collapsed. Mark caught her before she hit the ground. Her body was cold, trembling. Saran! He shook her gently. Her eyes fluttered open. I'm alive, just weak. The crystal is yours now. Use it. Mark quickly installed the repaired crystal back into the core. It clicked. A low vibration filled the room. The shield surged. Blue light blasted across every wall, sealing cracks, hardening the door, and pushing back the hunter's metal hand, which snapped away like it had been burned. Outside, the hunters growled. They had lost their opening. Mark stood up, breathing hard. Saran whispered weakly, Did it work? Mark looked at the glowing walls. It worked. Lyra hugged her mother tightly, tears falling fast. Outside, the leader of the hunters spoke again, but this time, his voice carried frustration. You fixed it, impressive human. Mark's jaw tightened. But shields don't last forever. The forest grew silent. Mark whispered, They'll hit harder next time. The shield glowed bright blue, humming like a living wall of energy. But Mark knew one thing. A shield was only safe until the enemy decided to stop playing games. And the hunters were done playing. The forest outside shifted, not with wind, but with movement. Fast, heavy, coordinated. Mark stood near the center of the shelter, holding the metal pipe like a weapon. It wasn't enough. He knew that, but it was all he had. Saran lay weak against the wall, breathing slowly, her skin dim from the energy she used to repair the crystal. Lyra sat beside her, arms around her mother, crying softly but never taking her eyes off the door. Then the voices came. Not one, not two, many. Their helmets distorted the sound, layering it until it felt like a whole army whispering at the same time. Form positions. Prepare impact point. Shield integrity test begins in 20 seconds. Mark's skin crawled. They weren't hiding anymore. They were lining up. The first strike. The ground shook. Boom. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered, but the shield held. Lyra gasped and held her mother tighter. Mark checked the power cord desperately. The repaired crystal glowed steady. Thank God. But the energy levels wavered under the impact. Another hit. Boom. Harder. Strong enough to knock tools from the shelves. Saran whispered, They're using shock rams, designed to break alien shields. Mark stared at her. They have weapons just for you? For our kind, Saran corrected. We heal too fast. So they learned how to break us. Mark clenched his teeth. Not this time. The hunters changed tactics. Outside, the whisper voices returned. Shield stable. Switch to thermal strain. Load burners. Mark felt the temperature rise instantly. The walls glowed faintly red as heat poured in from outside. Saran grabbed Mark's wrist. Thermal strain melts shields from the inside. The machine will overheat. Mark checked the core again. The heat level spiked dangerously fast. We don't have long, he muttered. The door turned red, glowing like a sunset made of metal. Lyra cried, Mr. Mark, the door! It's burning. I know, Mark said, voice low, but they still have to break through it. That buys us time. Time for what? He didn't know. The hunters began their advance. Suddenly, thump, thump, Thump. 3 heavy metal boots stepped directly in front of the door. A 4th boot crunched in the dirt behind the shelter. Then a 5th, then more, circling them like wolves. Mark swallowed. How many are there? Saran listened, eyes narrowing. 10, maybe 12. Mark's heart pounded. 12 enhanced soldiers. 12 masked hunters. 12 trained killers. And him, a single dad with a metal pipe. Great odds. They tried the door first. A hunter slammed a gauntlet fist against a glowing shield door. The blue surface shimmered, like ripples in water. Another fist. Another. Then a 3rd fist hit at the exact same moment. Perfectly timed. Mark understood instantly. They're sinking their hits, he said. Trying to overload 1 point. Saran's voice trembled. They break shield with rhythm. With timing. They attack like a machine. Lyra hit her face in Saran's cloak, shaking. The hunters struck again. This time harder. Synchronized like a single giant hammer. Doom, doom, doom. The shield flickered. Mark's breath hitched. That was close. But the hunters weren't done. Outside, the commander spoke, voice emotionless. Switch to pattern 2. 2 hunters stepped back. 2 stepped forward carrying long black devices. Burner rifles glowing a deep red. Saran gasped. Burner beams. They cut shields like knives. Lyra sobbed. Mark, what do we do? Mark didn't answer. He couldn't, because the beams activated. FSSSSHHHHHHHH. Twin red lines sliced across the shield. The entire shelter shook like it was screaming. The blue glow dimmed. Mark grabbed Lyra's shoulders, pulling her close. It's okay. Stay behind me. Don't look at the light. The beams carved slowly, steadily, like surgeons cutting through skin. A single crack appeared in the shield. A small one, but a fatal one. Saran whispered, once they make an opening, they will come through fast. Mark grabbed tools, shaking. Then we keep it from opening. He ran to the power core again. The heat gauge was almost full. One more hit might blow it. He tore open the side panel, hands burning from the heat. Come on, don't die on me. He rerouted wires, stripped insulation, jammed metal pieces where they didn't belong. If any engineer saw him, they'd scream. But the shield brightened, just a little, enough to resist another second. The hunters escalate. The commander spoke again. Pattern 3, breach formation. Mark's skin turned cold. Saran whispered, horrified. They are done testing. Now they break in. The hunters formed a V shape in front of the door. 7 soldiers. Heavy armor. Gauntlets locked. Stands firm. Mark muttered, oh no, they're going to... Boom! They charged. A human battering ram. The impact knocked Saran onto her side. Lyra screamed. Mark fell against the power core, tools flying. The shield flickered wildly. Blue, then pale, then nearly white. A second charge hit. Boom! Cracks spread across the glowing barrier. Mark shouted, hold on! Don't break. A third charge. The shield shattered like glass, except the pieces turned to sparks. The door was exposed. A hunter stepped forward, raising a fist the size of a hammer. Saran whispered, they're in... But Mark wasn't done yet. He grabbed the final cable and slammed it into the core. A flash erupted. The shield reformed. Stronger than before, brighter than before, angrier than before. The hunter's fist bounced off it like he had hit a wall of solid rock. The entire squad stumbled back. The commander hissed through his helmet. Impossible. Mark stood up slowly, breathing hard, sweat dripping from his brow. He looked at Lyra and Saran, then at the hunters outside, and he said the words without fear. You're not getting in. The blue shield roared to life like a rising sun, brighter than any moment before. It pulsed outward. One wave, another, then a third. Each pulse hit the hunters with a shock, so powerful their armor sparked. For the first time since the attack began, they stepped back, not because they wanted to, because they had to. Mark stood inside the shelter, chest rising and falling with exhaustion, a burn cable still in his right hand. His arms shook, his knuckles were bleeding, and his clothes were covered in dust. But his eyes? Cold, focused, unbroken. The hunter commander stared at the shield, helmet turning slightly as if recalibrating. The human bypassed alien tech, he said, voice flat. Unpredicted behavior. Adjust parameters. Mark grinned weakly. Yeah, just this. He slammed the side panel shut, and the shield surged again, dazzling blue, swirling like living fire. Inside, Lyra rushed him and grabbed his shirt tightly. Mark, you did it. You made the shield stronger. He knelt down and hugged her carefully. I didn't do it alone. Your mom saved the crystal. You held the conductor. We all did it. Lyra smiled through tears. Saran, still weak, sat up and whispered softly, You protected us like one of our own. Mark opened his mouth to answer, but outside, the hunters regrouped. 12 helmets faced the shelter. The commander lifted his hand. Retreat from direct assault. Initiate secondary extraction plan. Secondary. Extraction. Mark felt ice slide down his spine. He stepped to the window, eyes narrowing. What are you planning now? The hunters moved with perfect synchronization, every soldier stepping back into the shadows of the forest. Within seconds, they vanished. No sound, no footsteps, just silence. Too much silence. Lyra whispered, Are they gone? Mark shook his head slowly. I don't trust quiet enemies. Saran tried to stand, wincing at the pain. They didn't leave. They changed their plan. Mark checked the power core readings. The shield was strong now, but not infinite. The heat levels were dropping, but slowly. We bought time, he said, but not safety. Then, a soft sound echoed from outside. Not an attack. Not a weapon. A cry. A child's cry. Mark froze. Saran gasped. Lyra, don't move. Lyra stood in shock, eyes wide. I know that sound. Mark whispered, That's a boy. Saran finished, voice trembling. A weak voice drifted through the shield, barely audible. Help, Mom, it's dark. I'm scared. Lyra covered her mouth. Brother? Mark felt his stomach twist. It was too real, too emotional, too precise. If it was an imitation, it was perfect. If it was real, the boy was suffering. Saran said through tears, They brought him near the shield. They are forcing him to call us. Mark clenched his jaw. That's sick. Lyra ran toward the door instinctively, but Mark grabbed her shoulders. No. Listen to me. If you step outside, they take you. That's exactly what they want. But he's alone, she cried. He's hurting. Mark met her eyes. Painful. Strong. Human. I know it hurts. But running into a trap will not save him. Saran whispered, They will not harm him yet. They value him too much. Mark stood straighter. Then we make sure they never get the chance. The hunters revealed the truth. The commander's voice came from the forest once more, amplified by speakers. Saran, Lyra, the boy has minutes. Bring the girl and he lives. Mark stepped forward. And if we don't? A cold pause. Then he dies. Slowly. Lyra screamed. And oh? Saran sobbed silently, covering her face. Mark's anger reached a breaking point. He shouted at the forest. You're cowards. You call yourselves soldiers. Using a child as bait. Silence. Then the commander answered. We use whatever works. Mark's fist tightened until his nails dug into his palms. He had fought machines, fire, pressure, death all night. But this was war. Not between humans and aliens. Not between species. This was a war between cruelty and compassion. Between hunters and a father. Mark makes a decision. He turned back to Saran and Lyra. Saran looked broken. Lyra looked shattered. Mark spoke softly, but with steel in his voice. They want the shield down. They want you scared. They want Lyra to run. He kneeled in front of the little alien girl. But listen to me, okay? He placed his hand on her cheek. Your brother is alive, and we're going to get him. She sniffled. How? Not by giving up. Not by surrendering. He pointed at the door. By fighting smart. Saran wiped her tears. Mark, what are you planning? Mark took a deep breath. I'm going outside. Both of them froze. Lyra grabbed his shirt. No, they'll kill you. Mark smiled sadly. Maybe, but I'm not going out to fight them. He pointed to the floor panel beneath the power core. I need something from the shelter basement. A tool. Something big. Saran frowned. What kind of tool? Mark looked at her, calm, confident, dangerous. One that turns a hunter's trap into our trap. He stood up. The shield will hold for 15 minutes. Maybe 20. He cracked his knuckles. I only need 10. Lyra whispered, all mixing with fear. Mark, are you really going to save my brother? Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. Lyra, I'm a dad. His voice softened. And dads don't leave kids behind. She hugged him so tightly he couldn't breathe. Saran whispered, You're not just a human, Mark. You are family now. Mark stepped toward the basement hatch. And behind the shield, the hunters moved in the shadows, unaware that the human they tried to break was about to become the hunter.